Okay, let's dive in. Something significant happened recently at the Thai-Cambodian border, a clash that really put a spotlight back on some pretty complex, deep-rooted issues between the two countries.
Exactly. And we've pulled together quite a stack of sources, articles, research papers, official reports that really help unpack the history, the specifics of this recent event, and, well, the broader picture of Thailand's border security, especially regarding Cambodia.
So our mission today is to sort of navigate through all this material. We want to pull out the key insights, connect the dots, and really help you understand the layers of history, the politics, the security challenges all tangled up here. To make sense of what's happening now, we really have to look back. And one of the most persistent flak points historically has been the area around the ancient Preah Vihear temple.
Oh, absolutely. This dispute goes back decades. It really kicked off in a big way around 1958. The core issue, basically different maps and different ideas about where the border actually lies, especially along the natural watershed line of the Phnom Dong Rak Mountains.
Right, that watershed line, the ridge, where water flows one way or the other. Seems logical, but different maps showed different things.
Precisely. And that led to the first major legal battle at the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, back in 1962. The ruling was pretty clear on the temple itself, awarded to Cambodia 9 votes to 3.
Which understandably caused a lot of dissatisfaction in Thailand at the time.
But here's the crucial bit, and it sometimes gets lost. That 62 ruling didn't actually settle the entire border dispute around the temple. It left the exact boundary in the, quote, vicinity a bit ambiguous, and that ambiguity, it just festered for decades.
Okay, so fast forward quite a bit to November 11th, 2013, another ICJ ruling. This time, it wasn't about who owned the temple that was done. This was about interpreting the 1962 judgment, specifically what vicinity or Mesopotamian Margin Thai actually meant on the ground.
Yeah, and the 2013 ruling gave Cambodia sovereignty over the area immediately surrounding the temple. But again, it didn't draw a perfect, clear line for the whole border there. Like, the court didn't accept Cambodia's claim over some nearby hills, Phanon Trop or Phum Makub, but it also didn't fully endorse the specific area Thailand's cabinet had previously marked out based on their interpretation. So, still some gray areas.
So one key takeaway from the research, especially from academics at Chulalongkorn University, really frames it well. The 2013 ruling didn't fundamentally change the fact that Thailand had lost the temple and some land back in '62.
Right.
The 2013 interpretation just clarified how much additional area around it was confirmed as Cambodian, depending on whether you looked at it as 4.6 square kilometers or based on Thailand's older cabinet resolution. The main point being Thailand lost the case on the temple itself a long time ago.
It's true. And it's also worth mentioning some sources do point out the shared cultural value of the temple for both countries. Ideally, it could be a symbol of friendship, but...
Yeah. But the reality, especially after 2013, was more tension, wasn't it? Reports of protests, flag burnings in Bangkok, more security at embassies, a lot of nationalistic feeling.
Definitely. Which contrasted sharply with calls for, caution and mutual understanding from academics and others.
And a significant detail from the sources. After losing that initial Preah Vihear case, Thailand actually stopped accepting the ICJ's compulsory jurisdiction. That's a pretty major step. Okay, so that deep history really sets the stage. Now let's jump to the recent incident that brought this all back into the headlines. A clash on May 28th, 2025, at a place called Chongbuk.
Right, Chongbuk. It's in Thailand's Ubon Ratchathani province, part of what's sometimes called the Emerald Triangle, a tricky border zone where Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia meet.
Emerald Triangle, okay.
This specific spot, about 12 square kilometers, borders Ubon Ratchathani and Sisaket provinces in Thailand. And it's known precisely because the demarcation isn't clear and you have military presence from both sides.
So according to the Thai Army's version of events, it started early that morning. Thai forces, the Suranari Task Force, saw Cambodian soldiers entering an area Thailand claims as its own.
The sources say around 5:30 a.m., a Thai liaison unit tried to talk to the Cambodian soldiers. But apparently a misunderstanding happened.
And that led to shooting.
Yeah, an exchange of fire for about 10 minutes.
And tragically, a Cambodian soldier died. Cambodian authorities confirmed it, but their account, importantly, claimed Thai soldiers fired first.
Which highlights the immediate difference in perspective. But what happened next was key. Communication lines opened up pretty quickly at the local command level.
Okay.
The Thai deputy commander, Colonel Boonserm Boombamrong, spoke with his counterpart, Lieutenant General Thal Sovan, and they managed to agree on a ceasefire fairly fast.
That's crucial. And then the top army commanders got involved the very next day, right? General Phana for Thailand and General Mao Sophan for Cambodia.
Correct. They met on May 29th. General Phana expressed regret for the loss of life, which is standard diplomatic protocol, and reassured Cambodia that Thailand wouldn't infringe on its sovereignty.
And they came out of that meeting with some concrete steps.
Yes, several joint conclusions. First, resolve the issue through the proper channel, the Joint Boundary Committee, or JBC. They aimed for a meeting within 2 to 3 weeks.
JBC, the technical body, makes sense.
Second, troops from both sides pull back 200 meters from where the clash happened. Standard de-escalation tactic, create some breathing room.
Okay.
Third, just a general agreement to maintain good relations and exercise restraint. Keep things calm on the ground.
And the Cambodian general made a specific point, too.
Yes, General Mao Sophan stated that any Cambodian personnel found violating agreements would be removed, basically affirming his command and control over the units there.
So we got the history, the clash, the immediate military response. But this obviously rippled up to the political and diplomatic levels, too.
Absolutely. The Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the MFA, put out a statement on June 1st. They expressed regret for the soldier's death, but they also firmly stated Thailand's position,
Which was?
that their forces acted according to international law, proportionately and lawfully to protect sovereignty against armed foreign forces entering their claimed territory. Essentially, self-defense.
And they confirmed high-level talks happened.
Yes. The Thai Foreign Minister, Marasan Jampong, spoke with his Cambodian counterpart, Prak Sokhon, twice, and even with Cambodian PM Hun Manet while they were both in Japan. So channels were open.
Good. And both sides agreed to use the existing mechanisms.
Right. The JBC for the technical boundary stuff, but also the GBC General Border Committee and RBC Regional Border Committee. These are broader forums for cooperation. The idea is use these established tools for peaceful de-escalation.
And the JBC meeting was expected soon.
Yeah, they anticipated it within 1 to 2 weeks, hosted by Cambodia. Thailand said they were ready to go. The MFA also urged caution in media reporting, to avoid inflaming things.
The Thai MFA spokesperson, Nikorndej Balankura, echoed all this.
Pretty much. Reiterated the self-defense, proportionate action line, clarified the JBC's role for both long-term demarcation and temporary measures in sensitive spots, said Thailand's just waiting on Cambodia for the date and venue.
And stressed accurate communication, reflecting Thailand's view of reality.
Now, over on the Cambodian side, the public statements from leadership were, quite strong. Prime Minister Hun Manet posted on Facebook.
What does he say?
He said Cambodia doesn't intend to invade anyone, but reserves the right to use all means, including armed force, to protect its territorial identity if invaded.
And the picture he used was significant.
Very. It was him in military uniform from the 2008 and 2011 pre-Aveher clashes, a pretty clear visual signal of resolve or perhaps readiness for confrontation.
And his father, Hun Sen, the former PM and current Senate president, also weighed in.
Yes, he also posted on Facebook condemning whoever caused the aggression and explicitly drew parallels to those 2008-2011 pre-Aveher events, which were much more serious clashes.
And he announced troop movements.
He did. Said they were deploying troops and heavy weapons to border areas as preparation for, quote, unwelcome incidents. So definitely dialing up the rhetoric.
How did the Thai MFA respond to Hun Sen's post?
The spokesperson basically said it has no legal effect. It just reflects the reality from his perspective, and Thailand remains focused on communicating its reality, a diplomatic way of acknowledging it without escalating further.
So we've seen the history, the incident, the reactions. But the big question is, why do these problems keep flaring up? What are the real underlying causes here?
Well, the sources point to a mix of things. You've got the fundamental geography and history, but then layered on top are some complex political factors.
Okay, so the basics first.
Sure.
A long border, 798 kilometers, and lots of spots where claims overlap.
Exactly. Specific disputed land areas mentioned include near Preavahir, of course, but also Chong Tafraya, Khao Taguk, Khao Taban, and that's just land. There are maritime disputes, too, near Kokud and further out in the Gulf.
And a core technical problem is just using different maps, right? Stemming from old treaties.
Yes, interpretations of those old Franco-Siamese treaties going back to 1893 differ. Plus, on the ground, the actual markers from way back then, they get damaged, lost, maybe even moved over 100-plus years. It makes the line physically unclear in places.
Add the historical context that Thailand feels some of those treaties were unfair to begin with.
Right, it all feeds into it. But then you have the politics.
Ah, yes, the politics. How does that play in?
Well, the sources suggest that political instability or even just political maneuvering within either country can lead groups to use these border issues, stir up nationalism, maybe to attack the government or score points.
So, using the border for domestic gain.
Potentially. One analysis from the BBC, mentioned in the sources, suggests that for the Cambodian leadership, the Hun family, they sometimes face domestic criticism about being too close to Vietnam for historical reasons. So showing strength against Thailand can be a way to counterbalance that perception internally.
That's fascinating. A way to shore up nationalist credentials.
Could be. And it's also suggested that PM Hun Mane's strong public stance, using that military photo, might also be about building his own image as a strong leader, separate from his father's long shadow, proving he's capable.
What about the Thai side? Do domestic politics play a role there?
Some Thai experts quoted, like Pongsakorn Ratchomfu and Ferdorn Patanathibutr, suggest that Thailand's current political situation, seen by some as maybe weaker or in transition, could potentially encourage Cambodia to be more assertive right now, sort of testing Thailand's resolve.
So it's this complex interplay. And the sources also mention something about a possible disconnect on the Thai side between policy and military action.
Yes, that was an interesting point raised, a potential gap in command, meaning maybe the government's diplomatic approach isn't always perfectly aligned with actions or commands happening on the ground within the military structure.
Which could be a disadvantage compared to Cambodia, where the PM seems to have very direct control over the military.
Exactly. And it was noted as kind of strange that this clash happened not long after a high-level GBC meeting, and when a JBC meeting was already on the cards, you'd think coordination would be tighter.
And the way the shooting started seemed odd, too.
Well, one expert view highlighted that standard procedure usually involves warnings before firing. So an immediate escalation to gunfire in an unexpected encounter seems, quote, strange, especially if these units are operating near each other regularly.
So the takeaway seems to be that personal relationships between leaders, while helpful, might not be enough anymore.
Right. The sources suggest that at the end of the day, national interest and hard geopolitics are driving things, and relying solely on old personal ties might not cut it for managing these really complex, multi-layered border situations.
To really grasp the scale of the challenge, it helps to zoom out from just the Cambodian border and look at Thailand's overall border situation.
That's a great point. It's not just Cambodia. Thailand shares really long borders with Myanmar, over 2,400 kilometers. With Laos, over 1,800 kilometers, Cambodia, the 798 kilometers we've discussed, and Malaysia, about 650 kilometers.
That adds up to a huge land border. What is it, over 5,600 kilometers?
Around 5,656 kilometers across 31 provinces. Then add the sea borders, Gulf of Thailand, Andaman Sea, another 3,100 plus kilometers across 23 provinces. And there are unresolved maritime claims there too, with Cambodia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Myanmar.
So managing these borders involves a whole mix of challenges, traditional military issues, boundary disputes, but also newer, non-traditional threats.
Exactly. Things linked to globalization, technology, even climate change impacts like disasters, plus cross-border crime, terrorism. It's a wide spectrum.
The research sources actually identified 5 key recurring border security problems for Thailand. First is what we've been talking about: border clashes, unclear boundaries, mostly potential issues with Cambodia and Myanmar, often tied to resources, ethnic groups, drugs, illegal logging.
And this category also includes the very specific, long-running conflict in Thailand's southern border provinces, which has its own deep roots in identity, history, and separatism.
Okay, wait a second.
Illegal immigration, driven by unclear borders, but also factors inside neighboring countries. This creates challenges for disease control, crime, documentation, human rights night. The Rohingya situation is often mentioned here.
Third,
drug trafficking. The sources note it's getting more violent, involving complex networks, and sadly, often pulling in young people.
Fourth is arms trafficking.
Yes, often linked to the drug trade and human trafficking. Arms smuggled overland and potentially by sea in the south.
And the fifth problem area:
natural resources, the environment, and large-scale disasters. Think illegal logging degrading forests, but also floods, droughts, storms. These hit border areas hard and often require cross-border responses.
Okay, so given this massive, complex picture, what are the sources saying about Thailand's approaches and policies for actually managing all this?
Well, one important shift noted is that since the ASEAN Economic Community formed in 2015, these border areas have become much more vital as trade zones. So that adds an economic development layer to the security picture.
Right, balancing security and economy.
Exactly. The overarching goal you see in national policies is efficient border management that serves both national security and economic progress. It's about balancing those interests.
So what kind of specific policy directions are mentioned?
Things like strengthening cooperation and partnerships with neighbors on all these cross-border issues make sense. You can't solve them alone.
Trying to push joint development in border areas too, right?
Yeah.
Not letting boundary disputes completely stop progress.
Yes, that's a key aim. Also, improving immigration systems, sharing data better, refining border control tools like visas and border passes.
And focusing on the people living there.
Definitely. Promoting people-to-people connections and building community strength and resilience right along the border is seen as important. Managing foreign labor flows, developing cross-border healthcare systems for disease control or patient transfers, those are practical examples.
And for the boundary disputes themselves.
The policy is to use those established technical mechanisms, like the JBC we talked about, for peaceful demarcation. And also to actively manage the sensitive, undefined areas to reduce the chance of confrontation. That's exactly what the military leaders just agreed to do again after Chongbuk.
Anything else?
Improving intelligence gathering and coordination is mentioned, sometimes even using psychological operations to build trust and security networks within local communities. And just generally, integrating security planning much more tightly with economic, social, and environmental plans for those border regions.
So, despite the recent clash, that agreement between the military leaders to use the JBC shows the underlying policy preference is still for peaceful, diplomatic, technical solutions.
That seems to be the clear direction, yes.
Okay, that was a really deep dive. You might be sitting there thinking, why does a historical spat over a temple or a clash in some remote border triangle really matter to me?
That's fair. But this isn't just about faraway news headlines. What this unpacks is how history, international law, the nitty-gritty of map-making, and even domestic politics inside countries all collide right at a nation's edge.
Understanding this helps you see past the surface. It gives you a much richer sense of what sovereignty actually means on the ground, the sheer difficulty of defining and policing borders, and the whole range of issues, from military standoffs to smuggling to environmental damage that border communities and governments wrestle with daily. You see how global and local forces really connect. So to quickly recap, we've walked through the long, tangled history of Thai-Cambodian border disputes, epitomized by the Priya Vihear case and its multiple interpretations. We detailed the recent, unfortunate clash at Chongbuk, looking at both the immediate military fallout and the wider political and diplomatic ripples.
We also dug into those underlying reasons why these issues persist, the geographic challenges, the differing maps, yes, but also the powerful influence of domestic political needs and narratives in both Bangkok and Phnom Penh. And we broadened the view to Thailand's overall border security challenges and the various policies in place to manage them.
Now, given this long history we've discussed, where interpretations of agreements shift, and given how much the sources highlighted the influence of internal political dynamics on leaders' actions, here's something to think about. How confident can we really be that relying only on the agreed diplomatic and technical mechanisms, like the JBC, will be enough by themselves to finally and sustainably resolve these very deep-rooted border complexities between Thailand and Cambodia?
It's a question that really highlights how even the best technical fixes still have to operate within the strong currents of history and politics. Makes you think.